Before we continue with the analysis, I want to talk to you guys about jerseyfifa.com, the home of all of the greatest football kits. Whether that's the latest home shirts, the latest away shirts, tracksuits, or even retro kits, Jersey FIFA has a bit of everything. There really is something for everyone, so if you are interested, then make sure to use the link in the description down below and head to jerseyfifa.com. Hey guys, welcome back to the AJ Analysis channel, where today we are covering Manchester United's penalty shootout win over Brighton in the FA Cup semi-final at Wembley, setting up a really good final tie with Manchester City, the Manchester Derby, in the final at the end of the season. And of course, like I said already, they got there thanks to penalties, and that's just kind of quickly what I want to start on. I thought the quality of the penalty shootout was really very good. Some great finishes from both teams, maybe a couple that could have been saved. I think Robert Sanchez had one and De Gea as well, but in general, the standard of the penalties that were taken were really good. And I thought it kind of matched the game itself as well, over the 120 minutes. I thought this was a really good tie. Yes, it finished 0-0 and didn't have the goals, but I thought, as a Manchester United fan, I always felt like United were in control of the situation, and I always felt that they were comfortable. I didn't ever really feel like Brighton were going to score. There was a couple of little things. I mean, like I said it in my tactical preview the other day, Brighton will always create chances because the football they play is just incredible, and you've got to be perfect to stop them. But to be fair, like, with a few tweaks that we saw during the game, I thought Ten Hag got it spot on, and his side were near enough perfect from a defensive point of view. Defensively, for me, it was a bit of a tactical masterclass. So that is what we are going to be talking about today. Basically, how United completely nullified Brighton. So that's the aim, basically. Brighton had all of the ball in this game. Percentage-wise, it was very high, the amount of possession that they had. The question was, could they break United down? United were happy for them to kind of have the ball in certain areas. It's about, can you break United down? And realistically, they couldn't. However, early on in the game, there were a couple of spells where, or a couple of phases, or a couple of patterns, I should say, which allowed Brighton to get out from the back. And it started with the goal kicks, where I thought that early on in the game, the United shape wasn't quite right. What we saw was Rashford and Antony moving up into these spaces here, like they so often do, between fullback and centre-back. And I've said it time and time again this season, it's a problem because it leaves the fullbacks disconnected from the press because they're pinned on wingers here, which means that if you have a quality ball-playing goalkeeper or centre-backs, Brighton have both, then it allows you to just clip a ball out here. And particularly to the right-hand side, it allowed Brighton a very easy way of stepping forward early on. However, Ten Hag kind of noticed this quite early, made the tweak, and just dropped Rashford and Antony a little bit deeper, and this kind of solved that problem. Brighton was still playing out from the goal kick because they were able to go to the centre-backs, but it wasn't the same as instantly going to the fullback who could easily progress it, so this early change was important. Now, with Brighton able to play out from the goal kick, this was now really the pattern for the game set. Now, imagine that all these players are squeezed really high in Brighton's half. I can't do it on this graphic because it just looks a mess, but just imagine everything we're talking about here is all camped in Brighton's half. That's where all the action was going on during this particular phase I want to talk about. Of course, it did progress through the pitch, but just imagine that these players for United are squeezed in a high press. So, like I said, Brighton are able to play out from the goal kick and move the ball towards the halfway line. And I actually think that United wanted this to happen, because what I think they wanted to happen was the ball to move away from Robert Sanchez. You see, Robert Sanchez is so good with the ball at his feet that it becomes an 11 versus 10 in an outfield situation. Of course, De Gea is out of the equation because he's back in goal. So United have 10 outfield players. Sanchez often likes to become involved in build-up, making it an 11 versus 10. So what United actually let Brighton do in this situation was progress the ball through this first phase. So Duncan Webster can actually kind of carry the ball forward really easily and have lots of touches on the ball because it's taking Sanchez out of the equation. So now it's just a 10 versus 10. Now on the centre-backs, the amount of touches they had on the ball, if you add Shaw and Lindelof's touches together on the ball, it's less than Webster over the 120 minutes. And it's pretty much the same for Dunk as well. I think he had like 10 less than Webster. The centre-backs had so much of the ball in this game. However, the reason they had so much of the ball in this game was because United's defensive setup was actually absolutely brilliant. So let's talk about why. First of all, we've got our two wingers here, Rashford and Antony, playing in half spaces. They're not all the way wide on the fullbacks like this, because that opens up this pass into Solly March or into Matoma. Instead, they tuck inside like this. And basically the aim of this is to cut this pass into the winger, but also be ready that if the ball goes to the fullback, they're going to get out and go across. Then, of course, we've got Martial kind of shuffling between the two centre-backs, shuttling between them. They both play very close to each other, so Martial kind of had that on lock, just kind of standing there in front of them, not letting them progress too far. And then we've got a man-for-man approach in the midfield, with Eriksen on Caicedo, Bruno Fernandes on McAllister, and Casemiro on Enciso. I want to talk to you about an amazing tool to help you become a more composed and confident footballer. Be Your Best is football training in virtual reality. Developed by experts in Norway, it's the perfect way to improve cognitive performance, improving scanning, decision making and memory from anywhere in the world. In Be Your Best, you will go through over 800 scenarios recreated from professional games. A bit like this one from Luka Modric. You'll play from his point of view and receive feedback for your performance along the way. Be Your Best is used by athletes from all around the world, with Arsenal star Martin Odegaard using it in his return from injury, and it's also backed by science, with a recent 9-week study seeing players increase their scan rate by a staggering 28%, and now you can get 20% off your first month or year by using code HUB20 at checkout. So make sure to use BeYourBest.com or use the link in the description. Something that I think everyone is aware of now is that Brighton want to play through here. Through the middle, they want to go into here, then back, and then through here. United did not let them do that. And one of the reasons for this was because Bruno Fernandes and Christian Eriksen were really intelligent in the way that they defended. And I thought they'd done a brilliant job of stopping McAllister and Caicedo getting on the turn. Now, granted, there were still situations where it happened. And, you know, like I said right at the start of the video, like I said in my preview, Brighton are so good that they do create chances no matter how good you are. They do have spells where they play through you. However, in general, I thought the midfield dealt with Brighton almost perfectly. There just wasn't really a way through for them. Now, what Brighton do often to try and counter-attack, or to try and counter this, I should say, sorry, is they'll drop the striker deeper with Enciso in this area. This kind of zone 14 outside the Manchester United penalty area. This is the area they're trying to occupy. But United had a solution for that. Luke Shaw just be incredibly aggressive and follow Danny Welbeck wherever he goes. There was a situation on the 9th minute where Danny Welbeck drops into this position here. Luke Shaw is all the way with him in this area. And that was kind of the theme set for the game. Anywhere Welbeck went, Shaw went with him. Casemiro's doing the same on Enciso. And then Lindelof is kind of the spare man, kind of sweeping up behind. And again, genuinely it worked perfectly. Like I said, Brighton like to drop their players into these areas to kind of play a quick bounce pass off them. Shaw just wasn't letting that happen. Now, again, yes, when you get into these situations, there are circumstances where the player will turn well. Enciso, for example, has a really good low centre of gravity. He's really good at turning on the ball. So there were situations where he was able to kind of turn Casemiro and then move forward and carry the ball forward, dribble or whatever. But then with Lindelof being the spare man, it actually just worked really well. I thought United defended well in wide areas as well. A lot of talk about Matoma versus Wan-Bissaka. Wan-Bissaka completely locked it down. And I think this is where Matoma lacks the athleticism to kind of be an elite player. He just couldn't deal with the physicality of Wan-Bissaka. And then on the other side, I thought Dalot had a really good game up against March as well. And basically, this is quite an easy video to do for me, because we're talking about how United restricted Brighton. This was pretty much how they done it. Now, there were situations where Brighton would play through. Obviously, I mean, you know, if the ball goes here from Webster to Dunk, Bruno Fernandes occasionally kind of took that as the signal to step forward and jump. However, that only works if everyone else jumps with you. For example, Casemiro then has to come up onto McAllister. Most of the time it did happen, so it worked well. And again, United pressed well and won the ball. However, there were also situations where Casemiro was still deep on Enciso, so Brighton then had the spare man. From here, though, United just defended really well. And I've already spoke about Shaw and Lindelof, the way that they work together. Quality. The fact that these two have never played together at centre-back is quite impressive when you watch that performance. They looked so natural together. The dynamic of Shaw being aggressive, Lindelof covering behind him, worked really, really effectively. And genuinely completely nullified Brighton. Like I said, I didn't really feel at any point in the game that Brighton looked like scoring. Yes, they had all the ball, all of the touches, but they didn't look that threatening. United, on the other hand, did, because they were able to win the ball back in these areas on quite a lot of occasions. We spoke about Eriksen and Fernandes being aggressive. You've also got Casemiro in behind them as well, winning the ball back in these areas and then looking to counter-attack. And there were situations where they were 3 versus 3, with the likes of Martial, Antony and Rashford running in on goal. And I think another day, United probably take one of these chances on the transition. Antony's end product just wasn't it. He's been very good recently. What I did like was that we saw him being direct in this game, going on either foot as well, which was nice to see. But his actual quality of shot was really, really poor. Basically passed back to the goalkeeper. And then Marcus Rashford on the left-hand side looks like he's that injury from the other week. It looks like it's still affecting him a little bit. He doesn't look fully fit to me. Will we see him fully fit before the end of the season? I'm not sure. He does look like he's nursing something a little bit. But I thought he still done decent, nothing special. And kind of the same for Martial up top as well. But that's pretty much all I've got to say for this video, actually. Because this was the theme for the game. I wonder if for the neutral, it might have been a little bit of a boring game, because we didn't see a lot of goal mouth action. I mean, De Gea makes a couple of decent saves. Sanchez makes one really good save, actually, to be fair, from Marcus Rashford. But apart from that, we didn't see tons of goal mouth action. It was mostly the centre-backs for Brighton on the ball in these areas, trying to figure out how to break United down. And they couldn't. They couldn't. In the second half, they tried something a little bit different, at times going a bit more direct into the channels, but again with Lindelof spare, kind of sweeping up into this area, or at times it'd be Luke Shaw, Dalot clearing the ball. United just defended everything super well, and I think what they've done now is set the blueprint for how other teams can go beat Brighton. Now, I think what some people will do is look at this game and go, well, maybe Brighton aren't as good as we think, and is this actually that impressive to stop them? Maybe they aren't quite as good as what everyone's been saying. They really are. Manchester United actually just deserve a lot of credit for what they've done in this game. The way that they defended it, it was almost perfect to set up. Like I said, there were those few situations where, at times the wingers would be caught a little bit too narrow, and this would allow someone like one of the fullbacks to progress the ball, carry it forward, and maybe 2 versus 1, someone like Dalot. But I just thought that United midfield worked incredibly hard to cover for each other and get into these positions here and make sure that there weren't those gaps in midfield, and then Rashford would filter back in. They just dealt with everything. So that's what I want to talk about. In terms of United actually kind of sustaining possession, we didn't really see it. We will just finish with that, actually. I think one thing which was really clear in this game was that United just did not want to play the ball out from the back at all. They didn't trust David De Gea to do so. And that's completely fair enough. That's reasonable. Ten Hag is a manager that wants to play out from the back, but he knows that at times he doesn't have the personnel to do it. So basically what United done, Shaw would take the goal kick to De Gea. We'd see Lindelof push into this area with the idea of kind of dragging and Seeso. Shaw would step up, which is going to drag Danny Welbeck. And basically you got a 3 versus 3 back here with Matoma on Wan-Bissaka, Welbeck on Shaw, March on Dalot. But what it's done is just freed up De Gea. Just gave him a couple of seconds where he's not being pressed, he's not being rushed, and it just allowed him to go long where, in terms of pass percentage, he didn't complete too many passes. But I thought the areas, what he was hitting were pretty good. They weren't headers, they weren't passes, where the centre-backs could go fire and back in. They were into a good area where United are able to compete, and importantly, I think United were much better on the second ball than what they have been recently. All round, United, I think, were just about the better team. Brighton, of course, had possession, so everyone will say they were the better team. I thought United always looked in control defensively, and I thought that on transition with players like Antony, Bruno Fernandes, who was also brilliant, Martial, Marcus Rashford, they always looked more likely to score, in my opinion. So I just think it was a really good day for United. If they could have won it in the 90 minutes, I think it would have been a really impressive performance. If Antony can take one of those chances, which I think he should, they are tame efforts. United win this game 1-0. We're talking about a real tactical masterclass. So yeah, that's all I've got to say for today's video. Let me know what you think in the comments down below. Who was your man of the match? For me, I'm probably going to go for Lindelof. I just think he was quality, and then scoring the winning penalty as well. Really good performance. But let me know what you think in the comments down below. Thank you guys for watching. Hope you enjoyed the video. And as always, I will see you in the next one.